All right, good morning. I'm going to try to get Ramona a little more in the picture here. If you'll figure out where you want to be at, and I'm just going to see if that. Oh, it's an earthquake. There we go, guys. Now you're in there. But well, good morning. Hopefully you're having a good week. I do realize that Ramona and I were just talking. Last night got jittery or stuttery. I don't know what's the better word for that, but if things weren't happening, I told her I was so distracted by the screen I keep track of things on, I had to close it down. But let's see if we get some comments. If you can comment today, we may run into the same problem we did last night. Who knows? But we're gonna have a conversation. If you go back and watch, it's fine. It smooths right out. But if you're watching live, trying to participate, which is what we want you to do, I'm not quite ready to just have this for generations down the road. I thought of it this morning as I was getting ready, and I was thinking about, in particular, this. Thursday with Ramona, that we've probably got well over 100 hours of us yakking about the Bible, if you will. And when I think about that, I go, well, that's, if I've got, because it's digital media, these are things that we couldn't conceive of early in our lives. But if Willow is in her 20s, 30s, again, I'm do some math, hoping I'm still around. But if I'm not, they can say, well, what did he think about this? Mm-hmm. And we're trying to. Lloyd does a great job trying to group these things together, so that they're archived. And at some point, I'll probably make sure that I get copies of all this put onto a drive somewhere, so that if my family's interested, they can look. If Andrew's wanting to study in something in particular, he can go, well, here's. Bruce and Ramona talked about this, and Dad and Ramona. He doesn't call me Bruce, but that's I think the interesting thing about this, the power of this connectivity that we have. Or if somebody asks you a question, you go, well, I think I saw that. I think they talked about this, and you can go look. Yeah. Same way with sermons. If you do a good enough job keeping track of things. But anyway, today we're talking about wisdom, and I got to get over here to Proverbs. And I don't know if you how bad you're going to get on me for this, but so I have some verses not in Proverbs, and
I do too.
Okay, good. Okay, good. And you probably have the same ones I do, because this is one of the. I'm trying to figure out how this is. It's a collection of wisdom, wise sayings, and I think. Hey, good morning. Good morning, Sandra. Sandra joined in with us. But this is a collection in Proverbs of wise sayings. They're not all Solomon's. I think first off, let's go with that. They're not all his. It's a collection. You've got a portion of it where they tell you it's not his.
Right.
And so you got kind of a mishmash, if you will, from different people. But it is all words of wisdom. And I think what often gets missed about this, and I had to make sure I wrote normally I don't come with notes, but here, today. But I think this is the key for what we're talking about today, and what the Scripture's talking about. And maybe this is, everybody accepts this, but I don't think they do. This is not the wisdom of the world.
No.
This is the wisdom that is applicable to the daily life of faith. As I was going through this and reading a couple other things, that's really what kind of hit me, was that this book is really for us to not so much take it and apply it to every situation and go, well, I'm wiser than anybody else walking on the earth. And in all these things, it really is, these are things that should be helpful to keeping my faith, to walking in the faith and following the Lord. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple minutes here and see how you want to start this. I know how I was going to start it, and then I said, well, I think I want to end it this way. So I had 3 verses, and we can play, do you have these verses down?
Okay.
And but I do want to talk about these today, and I decided I want to talk about these at the end, after we talk about some Proverbs.
Okay.
So if you're gonna mix these in, pause on them until later. Did you have anything from James chapter 1, perhaps?
Yes.
Okay.
That's at the end, though.
Good. So that's why I knew I wanted to put it at the end, right?
And I've got Psalms 111.
Okay, good.
Which
so you
is
got that
also
one.
at the end.
Okay.
But I've got First Kings right on the top.
Okay. Well, what about Jeremiah chapter 10?
I do not.
Okay, well, good. Well, that's going to be at the end anyway.
Okay.
So I'm putting my 3 in. But hey, I think it's great. Start us off with First Kings then. Let's look at so since we're talking about the Proverbs, let's look at First Kings.
Right. Well, Solomon's wisdom is where I was thinking, because the Proverbs, at least half of the book is written by him. Actually, it says somewhere I read, I don't have it down here, but he's a lot of Proverbs, and I read somewhere, I don't know, maybe it was at the beginning of the other Bible I was looking at, but it said Solomon wrote about 3,000 Proverbs. And of course, we're not going to go through 3,000 Proverbs today.
No such thing.
And I think 100 and some odd songs or something like that. So, but I'm in First Kings, starting in chapter 3, where Solomon is now the ruler of Israel after David's death, and God asks him. God says, "Ask what you wish me to give you. Whatever you want, just ask." And so Solomon goes through this thing about what God has done for him. And so down in verse 9 of chapter 3, he says, after enumerating what God has done for him, and knowing that he doesn't have the capacity he need, to lead these people of God. So he says, "So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil, for who is capable of judging this great people of yours?" Now God was, in the next verse 10, it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked for this. And so in verse 12 he says, "Behold, I have given you a wise and discerning heart. So there has been no one like you before you, nor shall one like you arise after you." So you cannot be the wisest man in the world. I'm sorry. Yeah. Solomon has that. "I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will not be any among the kings like you all your days." So here, that will lead us to Proverbs, to the Psalms, the Proverbs of King Solomon and others.
All right. So I see you wrote a lot down there. So I
have a bunch of Proverbs that I wrote down.
Yeah,
I don't have any notes on them, but I just have. I figured they speak for themselves.
Let's look at what you wrote, and I'll as we go. Did you put yours in order, kind of flipping through Proverbs?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you hit one that, or when you start to move past where I've got a note, then I'll interject. How about that?
Okay.
And we'll just read some Proverbs and be encouraged by them today, and see what we might be able to glean.
Okay. Proverbs 1.
Okay.
Verses 2 through 7, "To know wisdom and instruction, righteousness, justice, and integrity." What did I say, 2 to 7? "To give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. A wise person will hear and increase in learning, and a person of understanding will acquire wise counsel. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles." And so that's why, to understand what these things are saying. Okay, and I have another reference in Proverbs 1, but did you want?
And again, I didn't have the first part there, but that's one of the things we always read, and let the wise listen and add to their learning. Let the discerning get guidance. I think this is something that when we want to pretend to be apologists, which is the fancy word for arguing, I think it is wise for us as Christians, and in our walk, especially with one another, to listen and absorb what the other person is saying, rather than looking to defend our position. And I think this is one of the things that, if you're going to be wise, one of the things you first do is you become a good listener. You listen to see where the other person is at, and then you offer, if you hear that, wow, what they're saying is really coming from a pain or a hurt.
Right.
Well, then you become more concerned, less with what they're saying and how they're saying it, but you become more concerned that they're an individual who's been hurt or living in pain, and you want to
Yeah.
help that. So that's wisdom in our conversation.
Right.
So,
Oh, I left off that it should have been 2 to 7 instead of 2 to 6, because verse 7 is good. You also find this in my last one in Psalms, but anyway, verse 7 of chapter 1 is, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first reference there. And then the next reference I have in chapter 1 is beginning in verse 20.
Mm-hmm.
You have that one too, right?
Yeah.
Or do
Yeah. Oh,
Wisdom shouts in the street. She raises her voice in public square. At the head of the noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of the gates in the city, she declares her sayings. How long, you naive ones, will you love simplistic thinking? And how long will scoffers delight themselves in scoffing and fools hate knowledge? So, wisdom, it says it shouts in the street and raises her voice in the public square. So, God is trying to get to us.
Yeah. The pronouncement
Everywhere.
is being made.
It is, and wisdom is warning us. You need to see, but the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So if you have no concern about God at all, you're not going to
the Lord has commanded us to go and make disciples.
Mm-hmm.
And are we more fearful of Him or fearful of the world mocking us?
Yeah, that's right.
When we don't go, when we don't talk to others, when we don't make friends with sinners, when we don't go out beyond our walls and we just hang out with each other, then it tells us that we don't fear the Lord. We fear confrontation. We fear rejection. We fear the world. So that's
right.
Challenges, I think, for us.
Yeah.
All right. What else? I don't have anything else in chapter 1.
No, I don't have anything else in there. Let's see. No.
Yeah, my next is in chapter 5.
Oh, well, my next one is in chapter 2.
That's fine, which is fine. I don't. Yeah, this is what we're doing today. I don't have an issue. You don't have to go to 5 with me.
Well, chapter 2 is the pursuit of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're wise, you in God's wisdom, you're pretty secure in in where you're standing. So I've got verses 1, and it's a big passage. I may not read it all. It actually goes down to verse 22, that whole section, but I'm not going to read all that. But verse 1 says, My son, if you will receive my words and treasure my commandments within you. Verse 2, make your ear attentive to wisdom. Incline your heart to understanding. For if you cry out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for his upright. I'll stop there. Yeah. So you don't have anything till chapter 5.
No,
right?
yeah, you keep going.
Okay. The rewards of wisdom in chapter 3. And again, this is a long passage, but I'll just kind of skip through it here. Let me see. Verse 7 says, Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. And then verse 13, Blessed is a person who finds wisdom and one who obtains understanding. For her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her produce better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire compares with her. That's wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's what wisdom is. And then I'll just... I've read the whole thing, but anyway, the last verse of that chapter, verse 35, says, The wise will inherit honor, but fools increase dishonor. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I have chapter 4.
Okay. Hey, roll right along. We're good shape.
Here we go. Chapter 4, verse 5 says, Acquire wisdom! Exclamation point. Acquire understanding! Exclamation point. And it goes down through verse 13. 11 says, I've instructed you in the way of wisdom. I've led you in upright paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. And then verse 13 says, take hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Okay.
Yeah.
Now
in there, and I'll come back, but in that passage that you're reading there in chapter 4, where it's get wisdom, get understanding. Right down below there in verse 7, it says, though it costs you all, it costs you everything.
Yeah, how did I miss that?
Get understanding.
The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. Yeah.
And
I should have had that mark.
It costs you everything.
Yeah.
This is something that, and again, what we're talking about, again, the wisdom and that's why I started with the definition I did, is it is this, how to live my life daily with Him. Mm-hmm. If it costs me everything to know how to better live the life of faith with Christ, so be it.
Right. That's right.
There can be nothing that is of greater value. And so we begin to think about the pearl of great price when you start reading down through that passage. So that's a great one to point out. Now I'm farther down in chapter 5. Where are you in chapter 5?
Verse 1.
Right, see, I'm farther down.
Okay. Verse 1 is very short. It says, my son, pay attention to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, so that you may maintain discretion and your lips may comply with knowledge.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
The one that struck me is, again, it's just that great reminder. Down in verse 21 it says, for a man's ways are in full view of the Lord, and He examines all his paths. It's just, even if I'm not reflecting on or thinking about what I've been doing, God is. And He's, and to know that there are two parts to this. I can be afraid that He's watching me.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Or I can take great comfort that He's watching over me, that He's watching. But this one is very pointed in that you're not hiding anything. Now, bear in mind, because a lot of this chapter deals with adultery.
Right.
Which again, he always called Israel an adulterous nation. He called them. He'd say, "You prostitute yourself out to these other nations," and all these things. And so what he does is, "Hey, look, fellas, I see everything. Everything that you're doing, all your planning is in full view of me. You hide nothing from me." And I kind of take comfort in that, because now I don't have to worry about covering things up. And this reminded me, my brother and I, our whole careers out in the work world, as I call it. We said, look, we don't simply tell the truth all the time because of our morals. That's part of it. But we also just tell the truth because then it's just easier to remember. You don't have to remember what lie you told of what person.
Yes.
And you only have to remember one thing. And so when we approach God, knowing that He already knows, but still we will make excuses to God if we're not careful. But this is a great reminder for us. Man's ways, all the ways of man are in full view of the Lord. There's nothing going on. And this is, and again, this verse I've gone back to the past few months, reading about, again, some people who are preaching a gospel I don't agree with, talking about how that God was shocked by His death on the cross. And again, I go back to, if a man's ways are completely known, then it's all of this is at His design, at His will. So that's right. It's crazy.
It was planned right from the beginning.
It was very planned.
Yeah, depending on where you stand with God, knowing that He's watching every move you make and every word you say, you can either be, oh my goodness, terrified, or I remember as a kid, whenever I'd be going out with my friends, and my mother would always say, "Now don't do anything you wouldn't do if I were right there with you."
Yeah.
And many times I had to say, it's a bad day for Mom today. But when you know that God is watching every step and every word.
Yeah, Mother always said, "Would you take Jesus with you?" And I'd say, "Well, Jesus is staying home tonight." And she'd shake her head. She'd be like, "Oh no, we're not going down that road." That's good, but a lot of fun with those things. Okay. All right, where are you next?
All right, my chapter 7. I didn't have anything in particular in 6 that I could find.
I don't have anything. In 6.
I'm sure it's all good, but
but no. Again, we're hitting highlights here today. That was our goal.
Wisdom things. Yeah. In chapter 7, now this is where you're getting into the prostitutes and all this, but in verse 4, it says, "Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend, so that they may keep you from the adulteress, from the foreigner who flatters with her words. That's all I have there. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. Wisdom here is feminine, if you haven't caught on to that yet.
Yeah. It's, and again, what he's trying to, this deep relationship. It's always been relational with these things. And again, I went in chapter 7 to verse 25. Again, a kind of companion to what I just read in 5. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are a mighty throng, and her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. This is, hey, he knows.
Did your mother ever tell you that when you were going out on a
date?
No,
never did that. No. We, there were other rules, but yeah, that this understanding that hey, he knows our paths, and he knows where that leads to. He knows where that ends up. No good, and he doesn't desire that for us. So that's very important, I think. And I got in chapter 8. You got chapter 8?
Yeah, I've got this whole section, the wisdom call.
And this speaks back to what you talked about earlier on the street corner.
Yeah.
The reminder, and we're catching it here periodically. If you read through the Proverbs, you're going to catch periodically that there are these pieces and nuggets you get, and then there's these passages where it's really about the call.
Right.
Which really, to me, is, again, I go back to that definition I started with, is a call to the faithful life. See, the Proverbs aren't to make me better than other people. They're to make me closer to God. They're to draw me into the right path that I'm supposed to be following down and not the wrong one. So, so what jumps out at you in your large passage here of chapter 8?
It's about the wisdom's call. And in verse 5, back up to verse 4. To you people I call, and my voice is to mankind. You naive ones understand prudence, and you fools understand wisdom. So, if you're not seeking wisdom, you're being very foolish.
Yeah.
You're a fool.
Yeah. If it's there for you and you reject it.
And somewhere in the Bible it says, don't call anyone a fool, because then you'll be in danger of hellfire. So that's a very strong word right there. Yeah. Calling fools. Understand wisdom. Let's see. I think that's about it. Well, let's see. No, that's about all I've got marked in there. That just kind of jumped out at me.
Yeah. So I've got verse 32 here in chapter 8.
Okay.
Now then, my sons, and I always like it. I guess being a dad of 3 boys, anytime the Bible says sons, I think have I done this well, right?
Yeah.
Now then, my sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Listen to my instruction and be wise. Do not ignore it. Blessed is the man who listens to me. And what I love about this connectivity, at least in my mind, it's where I'm at in my life, right? My boys are becoming, now they've already become men, but they're still my boys, this balancing act, right?
Yeah.
But my sons listen to me. And then that next verse is, blessed is the man. Yeah. This handing over from boyhood to being mine to you are now a man. But let me tell you, blessed is the man who listens to me. And the me is not me, their father. The me is the man. If you've listened to me, to point yourself to God and lean deeply into Him. So that I like those verses.
Right.
Again, sometimes reading the Bible is about you getting something for you out of it. It's not just a learning thing we want to do. We want to interact with it and see our lives there and ask ourselves that question. There might have been a time in my life where I said, no, I couldn't answer that question well, that challenge. All right, what have we got?
In chapter 9, there's another passage here, actually. You want to read it from 1 through 12 is what I've got marked. Wisdom has built her house, she has carved out her 7 pillars, she has prepared her food, she has mixed her wine. Wisdom's invitation is what it says here in this particular passage. She set her table, called the attendants from the tops of the heights of the city. Whoever is naive, let him turn in here. Okay, and then there's a lot of very wise things in here. Abandon your foolishness and live. Proceed in the way of understanding. Verse 7, one who corrects a scoffer gets dishonor for himself, and one who rebukes a wicked person gets insults for himself. Do not rebuke a scoffer, or he will hate you. Rebuke a wise person, and he will love you. So if you are wise and someone says, you know what,
Yeah.
I have a question about this or whatever.
Yeah.
He will love you for pointing it out to
Yep.
them. Give instruction to the wise person, and he will become still wiser.
Mm-hmm.
And teach a righteous person, and he will increase his insight. And then again here in verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom,
Yeah.
and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding.
Yeah.
So that's a good. And down below it talks about a woman of foolishness. That's
Yeah.
one of the insults my brother would we were going back and forth with the proverb insults.
Oh yeah, and yeah.
Woman
and,
of foolishness is boisterous. She has a lack of understanding and knows nothing.
Nothing of wisdom, which is
Yeah.
And again here, it's so vitally important for us to go. No knowledge of the Lord.
Knowledge of the Lord.
No knowledge of the Lord.
That's
there.
right. There's no knowledge.
And which again is why you can tie in once again. This chapter ends with, "Hey, because you know where all this leads? The grave."
Yeah.
It all leads to death, and that is, I think, so wonderful as you think about what God has done for us. So, all right.
Did you
I'll
have
show
anything?
up again at 11.
Oh, at 11. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I've got 10. I've got several in chapter 10.
Okay, all right.
The contrast of the righteous and the wicked.
Okay.
Verse 1. A wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish son is a grief to his mother. So, there you go. Verse 8, the wise of heart will receive commands. Here we are again.
Yeah,
If you,
you'll accept- yeah.
they'll receive it. If you're wise, well, let me say. But a babbling fool will come to ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I threw that one at my brother. I don't know. Let's see. Verse 13. On the lips of the discerning wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him who has no sense. Mm. And then the next verse, wise people store up knowledge, but with the mouth of the foolish, ruin is at hand. Okay. And then I just, the last one I have for that chapter is verse 31. The mouth of the righteous flows with wisdom, but the perverted tongue will be cut out. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked what is perverted.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Good challenge for us.
Yep. And that was 10. So I have a couple in 11, but you have verse 11? You said you had something
In chapter 11.
I mean chapter 11.
Yeah, chapter 11. Kind of this one. 4 is the one that jumped out at me here in this world and what we live in. Wealth is worthless in the day of wrath,
Yeah.
but righteousness delivers from death.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to this, back to what I was seeing earlier, kind of a pattern I was looking for, I guess, or the Lord was leading me to in is what the Proverbs, if it costs you everything, give it up. To know Christ and to know the righteousness of Him, and again, that is, and the righteousness of the blameless makes a straight way for them, but the wicked are brought down by their own wickedness. But really, 4 was the verse that.
Riches do not matter.
Yeah.
Did you have any other ones in that?
The only other one was in verse 7. It was a thought more than liking it is like a proverb to live by, because I've preached it at a funeral sermon before. Not this verse,
Okay.
but the idea that popped in my head. But it reminded me. It says, when a wicked man dies, his hope perishes. All he expected from his power comes to nothing. But the hope that's in the Lord also goes away. When we die, we no longer hope.
That's right. There is no
And
hope.
and it kind of hit me. This man's
Yeah.
hope was in his own strength, his own standing. The wicked man, his hope wasn't in God, and so it perishes. But then I kind of thought, but in reality, when I die, and it's a blessed thought for me as a Christian, hope. I don't have hope anymore.
Yeah.
You
have no more faith because you now see.
That's right. Yeah, love
you
is all that's
have no
left.
more hope because you've received what you hoped for.
Yeah.
Only love remains.
Yeah, and so we talked about that, and so
Yeah.
it's like this kind of jumped in my head when I was reading that through. I was like, it don't matter to anybody. But
Well, I've got verse 2. When pride comes, then comes dishonor, but with the humble, there is wisdom. So, and the integrity of the upright will guide them. And then the other one I have in that chapter is verse 30. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and one who is wise gains souls.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I've got for 11.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So.
Chapter 15 is where I'm going to show up next.
Okay, so I'll go to chapter 12. Okay, 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a person who listens to advice is wise. So, yeah. I mean, you can have a lot of plans and everything, and you just, it's like the guy that put all the grain in his barn and all and lived for today, and then he died that night. Well,
Yeah.
Chapter 13.
It'll happen.
Chapter 13, verse 1 says, a wise son accepts his father's discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. Yeah. And let me see, what else did I have in there? 13, 20, verse 20. And there's so many good things. I mean, you can't just read them.
Yeah. We're not saying these are the best ones.
No, this.
Yeah, these are.
And there are some that, I didn't even realize. One who walks with wise people will be wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Yeah, you got to watch out who you associate with.
Yeah.
So that was chapter 13. And so you're not until 15. So I'll go to 14. I've got several in here. Proverbs 14, verse 1, the wise woman builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands. Verse 6, a scoffer seeks wisdom and finds none, but knowledge is easy for one who has understanding. Leave the presence of a fool, or you will not discern words of knowledge. The wisdom of the sensible is easy to understand his way. Okay, that was, wait a minute, what did I just read? That was 14. Yeah, I'm in 14. Okay, and then verse 33 says, wisdom rests in the heart of one who has understanding, but among fools it is made known. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a disgrace to any people. 14 and 35. The king's favor is toward a servant who acts wisely, but his anger is toward him who acts shamefully. So we need to be careful how we act. Which brings us to 15 now. So you're on.
Okay. Yeah. So in chapter 15, I really had what jumped out at me is, I think it's a little gem. I really do. Verse 11. And I'm not being a Debbie Downer today with the verses that jumped out at me, but because they encouraged me. Death and destruction lie open before the Lord. How much more the hearts of men? And so the way that's phrased is, this is a real assurance of, not even the grave and death and any of those things are inaccessible. They're not out of his reach. Anything you can conjure up or conceive of, you can't get away from God.
Yeah.
And he knows, if he knows all those things and is sovereign over all that, he knows your heart. The depths of your heart. There is no hidden corner of your heart. I like there's a little song that talks about your heart being a house or something like that, and there are rooms. You've got to let him into all the rooms. And my thing is, he already knows he knows what's in there. Before you even let him in, he knows what's behind door number 3.
Right.
And so I like that word. There's nothing hidden from him. Now there are things that you don't want him to have, but he knows all about it.
Yeah.
He knows your worst hurt. He knows your worst fear, and he knows your worst problem.
Yeah.
He knows your struggles. He loves you anyway. I mean, how beautiful a thought is that? There's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing you can hide from him. Just trust him. That's what I had there in chapter 15.
Okay, well in 15 I had 1 and 2. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. I kind of got hung up on the fools or something.
Yeah.
Verse 2 says that
you're hung up on fools. I'm hung up on death.
You're
Okay,
hung up on death, and I'm hung up
Yeah.
on fools. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge pleasant, but the mouth of fools spouts foolishness. If you're a fool, you're gonna be spouting foolishness. Let's see. In 12, a scoffer does not love one who rebukes him. He will not go to the wise. Okay, and then in 20, oh, I just saw one that's very good, but I didn't write it down, so they're all good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what did I say? 20. A wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish man despises his mother. That's kind of like we read a little while ago, in a little different aspect. Foolishness is joy to one who lacks sense, but a person of understanding walks upright. And then the last one I've got on here is here we go. Repeat it again and again. Verse 33, the fear of the Lord is the instruction for wisdom, and before honor comes humility.
Oh, humbleness, yeah, absolutely.
Humbleness, yeah. That's it that I've got for 15. Do you have anything in 16?
16, yes, yeah. 16 is that great little verse in 9. In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps.
Yeah.
And to me, that is, it's the course is where I want to wind up, but my daily walk with him. That's why this has been such a theme for me, is that the daily life of faith is brought about by wisdom, that walking with the Lord. And so I might have a plan, but my steps and how I get there have to belong to him. And so I just love that little verse.
Is that the only one you've got there?
Yeah, in 16, yeah.
Well, I've got 16 and 16,
Okay.
which says, how much better it is to get wisdom than gold.
There you go again.
And to get understanding is to be chosen above silver. And then in verse 21, the wise in heart will be called understanding, and sweetness of speech increases persuasiveness. Man, to have that kind of wisdom all the time.
Yeah.
And verse 23, the heart of the wise instructs his mouth and adds persuasiveness to his lips. I really need to read these Proverbs more often and try.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
Yeah, they're good stuff.
Yeah. And then do you have anything in 17?
I do. Verse
Okay.
1. And again, I hate to... I know we're doing okay on time. Verse 1 of chapter 17 is, better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife.
Oh, that's for sure.
And in this day and age, we strive so much for the feasting. And it's just like, I always think back to, in our lives as a family, when Tanya and I first got married, we didn't have anything like we have now.
Oh, sure.
And for us, it always seems like we ate it every day. I'm sure we didn't. But she ate box Kraft macaroni and cheese, and I would make either a grilled cheese or fish sticks. And that seemed to be, most of our days what we were eating. And it was always Kool-Aid. That's what we were drinking in the house, and there wasn't, the soft drinks weren't. If we went to our parents' houses, there were soft drinks because they were better off than we were.
Right.
But apparently they had the priority straight. And but we look at it, and I just think to myself, to be able just to sit and just to be with peace. Those are the moments that are so wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I've got verse 16 in there. Why is there money in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom when he has no sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And of course, I don't have this down here, but verse 17 is one that we use so many times when we're thinking about our friends. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity.
Yeah. Well, and I like the 16. The NIV translates verse 16. It says, "Of what use is money in the hand of a fool, since he has no desire to get wisdom?" The desire isn't there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but
it's the same thing. It gives you a little more. And that's why it's so important. I really think to read multiple versions to kind of get the whole picture. And I even the ones that are hard to read those. I think that's one of the things that I grew up, and I hate to plug it. I grew up on King James.
Oh yeah.
And because that really was the dominant one, and other translations were kind of coming around or whatnot. But I do think we have an issue today that no one who isn't a King James, priority reader really doesn't even want to go back and read it. and
Yeah.
see the beauty of the English language and how God used that. Now, I'm not proclaiming that's, we got some folks that's King James only. I don't believe that, but I do believe there is value in even reading, when you read multiples, put that in your loop.
Yeah.
Because one, it will do two things. It'll increase your vocabulary. It simply will. And it will help you, appreciate the scripture more, I think. That's just me, personally. But then again, I grew up on it, so I know I'm tainted. Biased, if you will. All right.
And the last thing I have in that, in 17, is the last verse, back again to the fools. Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is considered prudent. So,
Yeah, there you go.
just keep
There
your
you
mouth
go.
shut.
Oh,
People will think you're cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, 18.
The one I had in 18 was just it's again very similar to the passage you just read, just prior to that one, that we use quite a bit in verse 24. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother.
Oh, yeah.
And we often use that for Jesus in our
Yes.
lives. But there it is, a friend who sticks closer than a brother.
Yeah.
And so that jumped out at me. Many of us have those people in our
Yeah.
lives, and we're grateful for that.
I've got verse 4. The words of a person's mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a bubbling brook.
Yeah.
And then the last one I have, and then I just had these two. The mind of the discerning acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge.
That's good.
So,
Good stuff. Good
all
stuff.
right, 19. No, 18 comes after 17, right?
No, we were just in 18.
We were just in 18.
Yes, we're in the 19
Yeah,
now.
that's right. Man, okay, we're moving along. Do I have anything? Yeah, of course I do. In 19, yeah. Do you?
In 19, where is it? It's right there in verse 1. Better, and again, it's very similar to what I had previously in 17. Better a poor man whose walk is blameless than a fool whose lips are perverse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in the reason why that one jumped out at me is that too often we buy into a prosperity type gospel. We think, well, now if they're a Christian, they're going to be wanting to have more stuff, or God's going to bless them with more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're really poor, like dirt poor, and don't have anything and are always needy, well, maybe they're just not a Christian I want to hang out with.
Yeah, that's right. You kind of.
I've seen that,
Yep.
and that's bothersome, because I know some people who have absolutely nothing that are wonderful Christians.
Well, look at our homeless ministry that we
Yeah.
used to have.
Yeah.
Beverly just got into that so deeply.
Yeah.
She loved her homeless. She'd come back talk, and you just
Yeah.
see her
Oh, yeah.
glowing because she loved them so much.
Yeah.
And they always liked it when she was there because she made the best sandwiches. Instead
Yeah.
of peanut butter and jelly, they
Yeah.
get a meatball sandwich or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
something like that, yeah.
But you kind of, those people kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's such a shame. Such a
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah.
In Proverbs 19, I have verse 8. One who gets wisdom loves his own soul, and one who keeps understanding will find good.
Mm.
And then, let's see, I have verse 11. A person's direction makes him slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense.
Mm.
Kind of like forgive your neighbor or turn the other cheek,
Yeah.
or something like that. And the last one I have in 19 is verse 20. Listen to advice and accept discipline so that you may be wise the rest of your days. Okay. Do you have anything in 20?
I do.
Okay.
You see it once again in verse 24. A man's steps are directed by the Lord. So we just
Oh,
had
yes.
that. So now we come back.
Yeah.
But then the second part of that verse says, how then can anyone understand his own way? Only one of us can
That's
sit in the
right,
driver's seat.
Yeah.
Only one of us can be in charge.
That's right. That's like when they say God is my co-pilot, and they say, well, he should be your pilot.
Yeah. You should be a passenger.
You should be a passenger.
So I like that challenge. You say you know exactly what you're doing, do you?
In verse, we're in chapter 20.
Yeah.
The only one I have is verse 1. Wine is a mocker, intoxicating drink a brawler, and whoever is intoxicated by it is not wise. So don't get drunk.
Yeah, yeah. That's the
Yeah.
scriptural part. The scripture. Hey,
Yeah.
once your decision making begins to get affected, you've had too much.
That's right.
I mean, we all know the Nazarenes are told, but the scripture's like, look, if you fall down, maybe a problem.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
Back
you got
off
a
on it.
problem.
It's going to make
it's not wise. Not wise.
And, they write country songs about that. Maybe I shouldn't get my theology from country songs, but that's
Now, in chapters, well, I do have something in chapter 21.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything there?
No, I
okay,
am.
Chapter 21, I have verse 11 that says, when the scoffer is punished, the naive become wise. But when the wise is instructed, he receives knowledge.
Well, that's
And then, where am I, 21? 20, verse 22. A wise person scales the city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. And verse 30, there is no wisdom, no understanding, and no plan against the Lord.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, now for chapters, you may have to do most of this because in the Bible that I was studying from, all it said in that Bible, and I should have gone to this one because I can see this one better anyway, but it says 22, 23, 24, and 25. In Proverbs, chapter 22, sayings of the wise. Chapter 23, sayings of the wise. Chapter 24, sayings of the wise. Chapter 25, more Proverbs of Solomon. 26 more Proverbs of Solomon. So I don't know what that was all about. And it didn't have, see, I should have looked at this. Yeah.
Well, and I've got, I got a study Bible with me today, as I've had on most of the occasions. But when you look at beginning in chapter 22, verse 17, what this is, this is a passage that they say very similar to the content of chapters 1 through 9.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
and so what you find here is it goes once again. So we're kind of repeating the pattern of the importance of wisdom, the knowledge of wisdom, teaching wisdom, and having that wisdom in your control. So that's kind of a pattern.
And the first verse in chapter 22, a good name is to be more desired than great wealth. And we know that favor is better than silver and gold.
Yeah.
And the rich and poor have a common bond. The Lord is the maker of them all. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But,
you get, and again, there's this one. There's talking about the kids in here. I didn't have anything kind of through these passages out to point because a lot of it is kind of a little bit of repetition. They're not repeated, but
maybe
the
that's
theme,
why they didn't get into it.
The theme is very similar to what is going on here in these passages. I'm next showing up in chapter 26. Okay. And really, unfortunately, a little bit was some of the words used here in the NIV. And some of these are things that one we've returned then to always having having animals. It's true. But anyway, so verse 11 in chapter 26. Is as a dog returns to a vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. That's one of the things that drives me crazy. I can't stand it. I can't stand it when dogs do that.
I know.
If
it is disgusting.
It's just disgusting.
And you find that in the Gospels, in the epistles.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, they talk about that as well.
Hebrews,
it just kind of gets me there. But then the other one, verse 18, the phrase they use, and I like in the NIV, like a madman shooting arrows, firebrands or deadly arrows, is a man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking. And so the imagery there is, be careful, because a lot of our warnings have been with the tongue, what you say, control your speech. And I was just joking. And again, phrases I've used. That's a phrase I have used.
Yeah, well, I was only joking. I
was just, now that I see I've caused all kinds of irreparable damage.
People insulted and angry.
But it really kind of hit me. And again, the phrase use it, the madman shooting. So you're randomly shooting. You're just pulling it back and letting her fly. Firebrands are deadly arrows, things that cause destruction. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if we're not careful, if we don't think about our words, they can cause great harm and great destruction. And then the deception part in here, because again, the way I thought about this is deceiving the neighbors, pulling their leg.
Yeah, it's only pulling his leg.
That's I was just joking because it wasn't I was trying to deceive him to get something. I was just messing with him, and that's like
And the next verse 20 is good. For lack of wood, the fire goes out, and where there is no gossiper, quarreling quiets down.
Oh yeah,
boy.
Now I will tell you, I use that as a pastor.
Yeah.
And I think I've not said this from the pulpit, but I've said it to people who have come to me. And especially, so I've been here for over 2 decades, half my life.
Yeah. The
people that are here know me. And so whenever someone goes to someone else to say, boy, talk about a pastor, I need to, mm-hmm. I always, and then that person comes, you need to do, I just heard. Yeah. And I go, and my answer is this right here, until they want to talk to me. The words out of I'll look at the camera for this one. The words out of a good church member's mouth to another church member talking about the pastor is, don't talk to me, you talk to the pastor. Mm-hmm. If I need to go with you to him, if you don't want to go, I will go with you. But you cannot go and talk about the pastor or anyone else in leadership of the church behind their back. Right. It's unscriptural.
That's right.
And if your pastor won't receive you in what you say, I always assume, even when people are mad at me, I always assume there's a hint of actual truth and correction that I need from the Holy Spirit, even if somebody's just angry. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that above all else, that person and myself, being part of this church, are united by the Holy Spirit. And they are my brother or sister, and nothing can change that. I'm going to live with them for eternity in heaven, so I better get things right down here. Right. And so that's that right there. Hey, without gossip, it goes away. Mm-hmm. Brother Ricky was famous whenever we transitioned from the last pastor to me, and he told the congregation, he says, "Look, you have 2 cans in your hand. One of these has water in it, the other has gasoline. What you say will either put the fire out or send it into an inferno. Be very careful which one you use." I thought that was brilliant words of wisdom for us. All right. What else you got there? Anything else? Are we wrapping? We're getting close to the end.
I think I don't have anything specific until chapter 20. Oh, chapter 27 is right here.
Well, looky there, 27.
Well, where'd you come from?
Came after 26.
Okay, I have verse 11. Be wise, my son, and make my heart glad, so that I may reply to one who taunts me.
Oh, yeah. So you didn't have verse 1? The great verse 1 of 27?
Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. You know, I just...
A great companion verse to do not worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow has enough worries of its own. Take care of it. I
don't think about tomorrow. I just live from day to day.
Yeah. Which gets back to this whole thing we're emphasizing this entire hour we've been together, is this wisdom is the daily life of faith with Him. Mm-hmm. The steps, not the course, the steps.
Right.
And then you get verse 17. Do you have that there in 27? No. That's the old, everybody loves this one, is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Any men's discipleship book has that verse in there. They're just so caught up in that, man, we're strong, we're made of iron. Just like, maybe we just sat and cried together. Maybe we'd be better off. That's not really. We would, I think. Some guys should. I cry too much. But anyways.
Well, see, maybe I meant one, and I put it, because I was getting kind of tired going through all this stuff. So I've got 2 lines there, and in 28 I've got 2 lines again for 11. So maybe
one of those is a 7. What do you got in 28?
In 28 I've got where's 28? I've got 11 again. I just kept putting that in. Let me see what it says.
You did a Bible study. What does verse 11
The
say?
rich person is wise in his own eyes, but the poor who has understanding sees through him.
That's good.
And I've also have in that one 26, which says, one who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but one who walks wisely will flee to safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one who gives to the next verse is good. One who gives to the poor will never lack anything, but one who shuts his eyes will have many curses. Yeah, we can't ignore those.
Yeah, there's so much in here. This 28 is a deep walk in a theology of wealth and power. Mm-hmm. It really is. My only take home from 28 was simply that we may have to come back to chapter 28 and do a little more deep dive on it, or I may have to do that at some point in my own walk to help you, because too often we look at it on the surface, and there's great depth to this chapter. So if there's one chapter here we've talked about today that really deserves you doing a little more research and diving down into it today for your own devotions, it is chapter 28, and go beyond just the surface words of this and see the wisdom that lies underneath. All right.
Let's see, 29. Do you have anything there?
I got verse 1 and 29. I love verse 1.
Okay.
And again, translation is a big part of it, right? A man who remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. And I keep thinking about Stephen talking to those folks. You stiff-necked people, when he's giving a sermon there in Acts, and how the Pharisees and the rulers of the synagogue, they were stiff-necked, and come 70, the temple was destroyed, and it was it just being just so bullheaded, I think is the. If I wrote a translation, I use bullheaded there, I think. But that verse 1 there in 20 and 29 jumped out at me because, again, it goes back to that. I see certain words, it just reminds me of other stuff. And that's kind of what drew me to that.
Yeah.
What do you got? Anything else in 29?
Well, when the righteous increase, the people rejoice. But when a wicked person rules, people groan. I've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 29. What else do I have? Arrogant people inflame a city, but wise people turn away anger. When a wise person has controversy with a foolish person, the foolish person either rages or laughs, and there is no rest. Yeah. Foolish people. Oh, and verse 11. See, I don't know why I'm so hung up on fools. Must be something there. A fool always loses his temper, but a wise person holds it back. And then 18, where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained. The people perish.
Yep.
But happy is the one who keeps the law. Where there is no vision, the people. This says are unrestrained. Does yours say the people perish?
That's verse.
Verse 18.
18. I went the wrong chapter. I'm sorry.
29:18.
Where there is no revelation, the people cast off restraint. But blessed is he who keeps the law.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so there's no revelation, the people cast off restraint.
Well, somewhere in the New Testament it says, doesn't it? Without a vision, the people perish. Or something like that.
Oh yeah. And I think it's from the Proverbs. I'm not sure what translation that is, but it's again a very spiritual conversation they're having there.
Yeah. Now, from chapter 30 and 31, I've got here that in these are other people. The words of Agur are in chapter 30, and that chapter 31. This was taught to him by his mother. This is where you find that wonderful thing. Who can find a virtuous woman? Noble woman, virtuous woman.
Yeah.
This that was King
Lemuel.
Lemuel, yeah. And his mother taught him this. And both of these guys, Agur and King Lemuel, they were not Israelites. But Agur eventually did become a Jew. And I don't know what happened to King Lemuel. But anyway, so these are the words of Agur, the son of whoever. What do I have in here? Anything? Proverbs 30. Oh, and another thing I found out about this, the sayings of Agur, that this is one of the most significant passages of messianic writings that can be found. So verses 1 to 4 are all I have for him. The man, I don't know. Let me find it. All right, what did I say? 1 to 4. I am certainly more stupid than any man, and I do not have the understanding of a man, nor have I learned wisdom, nor do I have the knowledge of the Holy One, period. Who has ascended into heaven and descended? Now this is a picture of Christ. Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has wrapped the waters in his garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name or his son's name? Surely you know. And then it goes on with all of these references here. I won't read the whole chapter, but you may have something in there that you want to bring out.
Yeah, I actually didn't in 30, other than that first part you just mentioned about that, pointing forward, if you will.
Right.
I didn't have anything there in 30, and I just had one comment on the noble character.
Okay, 31, that is the King Lemuel, the pronouncement which his mother taught him. And the description of the worthy woman, this is that funeral service or remembrance or whatever on Monday. It just about took me down because my mother's favorite song was "In the Garden."
Oh yeah.
My brother Dan, who was at that funeral, read this passage of the virtuous woman, and it just, kind of brought all that back. It's been 50 years since she died, but you know what? You begin thinking about your mother, it's like yesterday.
Oh yeah.
It just doesn't, But all I can say about this is it was, the about the virtuous woman, and that you probably have something on that.
Well, the one thing I had for today on that, and again, this is one of the things that I bought Tanya a Bible one time, and I wrote this in the front of it, and we've time and time again you hear folks read this, about their mothers and things, and as we were preparing for this, and I'm going back to my daily walk with the Lord, suddenly we get this, picture and image of this woman of noble character, and how that. Her husband is, because of her, her husband is well received and known, and all the, everyone is honored because of her offspring. They rise, all the stuff that's in here.
Yeah.
And I thought about the bride of Christ, the church, and I thought, man, we should be of noble character as the bride of Christ. We should live our lives out as light to the world, that people see us as light and not as something else, and so I kind of, that was one of the things I thought of there.
I do have verse 26 marked here. I didn't realize. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah,
the whole thing is just it's beautiful.
It's wonderful.
I always feel bad because there's always some woman, so maybe some young lady, or maybe even an older lady, that looks at this and goes, "I failed." And I guess it's the only thing that bothers me about how wonderful this woman is. She's not the standard.
Well, she's an ideal.
She's an ideal. She's not the standard. And don't ever read that. If you're a lady, don't ever think that that's what God expects you to be in His absence. He loves you. Don't ever think about it in that way. Well, let's wrap up.
Although that does describe my mother very well.
Yeah. Let's go grab our other verses we had there. You had James.
Okay, Psalms 111 says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Yep,
We've read that
go.
again and again. And then in James, chapter 1, verse 5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith without any doubting.
Yeah.
You can't be, for the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea driven and tossed by the wind.
Yep.
You've got to have faith and believe, and God will grant you wisdom. Not as much as Solomon had, I guess, but even a little bit would help most of us. So that was kind of fun going through all this stuff.
So I'll read Jeremiah 10. That's what I have.
That was
That's my
yours.
extra one here at the end.
Yeah.
But God made the earth by his power. He founded the world by his wisdom and stretched out the heavens by his understanding.
Yes.
The wisdom to lead a daily life comes from him and our relationship from him. And so, Sandra, thank you for your comments here. Yes, she said, I so enjoy your discussion of the Bible. It really is a discussion. I was hesitant as I kept going through and getting more and more of these in my mind. I said, I bet Ramona's going to have the whole book of Proverbs, and I've got a bunch of it. And
I didn't know. I didn't quite know what you wanted. If you wanted to go,
that's exactly what I wanted to do. Is kind of have a conversation about this today, and I'm glad that the two verses. And again, sometimes it's easy when you're a Christian. You've read the Bible a lot. You know where your other cohort and your other co-worker in Christ is going to talk about. And so I thought it was a good discussion today. Hopefully you've been encouraged.
I enjoyed it.
Maybe you've been challenged a little bit today as well. But we just want to let you know that we appreciate you sticking around with us. Longest in a while. That's okay.
Goodness, it's after 12.
Yeah, it's after afternoon. So we're gonna wish you a great remainder of your afternoon. You started it with us, and whenever you're watching this, we want you to know above everything else, God loves you, and so do we. So we just wish you all the very best. Blessings on you as you continue in your day and head into the weekend. Just enjoy your time with the Lord, your daily walk, for He's got your steps handled. If you'll just listen to Him.
Right.
God bless you.
Was free.